Our book has just turned 1 year old. The Shit They Never Taught You, we published last year, 12 months on. If you haven't grabbed a copy yet, what are you doing? It's available in physical book, ebook, audiobook, theshittheynevertaughtyou.com.
So here's what some of the people and the readers have been saying. So firstly, here we got Tim. I've listened to the podcast for years, and it was great to have a refresher and succinct summary of all the books we should read in full. The concept of going straight to the area that you need really appeals to me. Worth buying for sure.
Here's another one from Sam B. Love their podcast and love this book. The bonus chapters for the audiobooks are great as well. So it was 115 books in one in the physical book. The audiobook for you bonus, 147 or 148 books in one.
Yeah, so if you're just pretty new to this, to listening to the podcast, the book is really the podcast on steroids. All the best stuff that we've covered put into the written format. Or if you prefer to listen to us, you can obviously go to the audiobook. So head to whatyou'lllearn.com. You'll see us on the front page there. Or you can go to theshittheynevertaughtyou.com.
Welcome back to What You Will Learn. My name is Adam Ashton.
And my name is Adam Jones. Today we're taking you through the best bits of The 4-Hour Chef by Tim Ferriss. The simple path to cooking like a pro, learning anything, and living the good life.
Tim Ferriss. This must be our third Tim Ferriss. Tim Ferriss probably earns the Jugger, probably thanks to two of his books.
Yeah.
The most recent two we weren't that big of a fan of, but I really like this one.
Yeah, it's really good. It's definitely the most effort he's put into any of his books, right? Like the amount, it's unbelievable what he put into writing this one.
Absolutely. So the Tim Ferriss story, he was saying that before, he was kind of allergic to cooking. He was intimidated by it. He was kind of scared of it. And he found whatever ways he could not to do it. The extent of Tim Ferriss' cooking, much the same as yours, mate. It was like the pre-bought, chuck her in the microwave for a minute or 90 seconds and ready to eat.
Yeah, it's one of those funny gags. Anyone asks me, do you cook? And then I'll just outline that. Yeah, I cook. I did it the other week, didn't I? And it got a few laughs.
It was a great gag. Yeah, I cook, yeah. You just chuck it in the microwave for a minute.
So he does F all, but then one day, a bit like, myself at your house maybe. But for Tim, one day an old friend Jesse wanted to catch up. And, we'd chat about what they've been up to, and he insisted that he cook at Tim's place. And when they got there, Tim said, "Hey, mate, I'll handle the food portion. Tim, you can handle the wine portion of the meal." Like the old, just go to the bottle open.
That's right. Handling the drinks side of the meal is, very easy. Just grab a bottle or two of red. And then so Tim kind of walked in. He's like, "Oh, my goodness, there's this big-ass pot. There's this whole chicken here. There's all these veggies." Tim was like starting to stress out. But Jesse was like, "No, it's pretty easy. Here we go." Jesse just chopped the chicken up into 8 bits, chucked them all in the pot. He was like, "Yeah, don't wash these, don't chop them, just break them in half and chuck them in the pot." And whatever he did, just poured a bunch of oil, bit of salt and pepper, bit of garlic, just mixed it all around. And then he's like, "Cool, chuck it in the oven. 2 hours later, let's go drink, and then we'll eat."
And it was a piece of piss, really. So Tim was blown away because it was one of the most delicious meals that he's ever had. And he couldn't believe how simple cooking was. So he was probably making a bit of, a mount hill out of a molehill. What is it? A molehill out of a mountain.
No. You had
right the first time?
Yeah.
That's what Tim was doing. So he thought, okay, it's actually a bit easier than he thought, watching this weapon go at it. So he thought, all right, I'm going to give cooking another chance.
That's right. And a couple of years later, he was living out one of his childhood fantasies. He had some family and friends over for Thanksgiving dinner, which was, multiple meats, multiple salads, multiple side dishes. It was this big, whole, day-long ordeal to cook for everyone. And he was able to sit back and just watch everyone enjoy his cooking. And he felt like he'd graduated. He was previously a lifelong non-cook, and then he felt on top of the world.
That's it. So Tim, he graduated. And in this book, we're going to learn out how he did it because Tim is no stranger to learning new skills. If you listened or read the 4-Hour Workweek, you'd know that he'd won a gold medal in 1999 for the Chinese National Kickboxing World Championship. And also he got a Guinness World Record in tango dancing. So some pretty wild stuff. But even that, learning those things, still cooking to him before at the very start, it seemed a lot more mysterious, a lot more complicated, and a bit harder to master and learn.
Yeah, I feel like cooking should be easier than tango and Chinese kickboxing, but obviously there's not. There's just so much information. You don't know where to start. Cookbooks are kind
I'd say it is much harder, but he's, let's be real, he's trying to sell the idea of for his book.
That's true.
Anyway, let's not throw water on fire. Let's keep going.
Basically, he found that the two biggest problems were failure points and then the margin of safety. So these are the things that he tried to solve when he was learning cooking. So one of the big ones is failure points.
So if you think about it, it doesn't matter so much why people pick up cookbooks. We all have a crack at things. We have that instance of inspiration. But what matters to Tim is why we put them down and why we actually give it up. So his hypothesis in writing this book was that he could address all the tipping points that are often ignored and also increase the number of people that pick up the book and eventually become competent cooks.
Yeah, he did a poll of his audience, I assume just a little Twitter poll or something, but he found that all these things were failure points. Too many ingredients, which meant too much shopping, too much prep, too much wasted food, too much cleaning up, too many tools, too many pots and pans, all these expensive different things that they probably didn't have, so they had to go out and buy. All these different dishes meant different cooking times, so sometimes something's burning while something's undercooked. Dishes that require constant attention mean you have to sit there and give all of your focus to stir and watch and monitor. All these things were the failure points that he tried to eliminate in this book.
Yeah, a lot of cookbooks out there and a lot of how-to or self-help books. A lot of them are really for the writers and not the readers, So they're writing the book and they've got this really complicated recipe that makes them look really smart in how to do it. But then when you pick up the book and you read it and you're like, fucking hell, yeah, what's going on here? And then you just give up.
Exactly. And then the second big thing that he tried to work in here was the margin of safety. So Warren Buffett, the most successful investor of the 20th century, he says that he aims to buy stocks below their intrinsic value. So that means if you can buy it at a discount, the very worst case, you're still probably going to do all right. Because even if it kind of drops a little bit, if you can at least sell it back to where it was, you've got that little margin of safety there where at worst case, you're not doing too badly.
Yeah, particularly at the start, you need to keep in mind how badly can you mangle or stuff up a recipe, but you're still going to have something that works out and tastes incredible at the end of the day. So basically making things as idiot-proof as possible in the steps. So beginners like myself, maybe not you, Ashto, are going to hit some winners no matter what.
That's it. He says the maximum real estate is you make your money when you buy the property, not when you sell it. So Tim's cooking maxim, he says, you can guarantee a good meal by picking good recipes, not by following tough recipes very well. So he's all about picking the right ones to get started with.
So in this episode, we're going to be talking a lot about meta learning. So obviously cooking is a bit of a metaphor here. You don't need to, it's not specifically about cooking. This is about learning, but using certain principles in the realm of cooking. So obviously they can be applied to anything you want to learn in the world, really.
When it comes to learning, it's possible to become world-class in just about anything in 6 months or less. If you're armed with the right framework, you can seemingly perform miracles, whether that's learning Spanish, learning how to swim, or anything in between.
Big call, isn't it?
Big call.
Anything in 6 months or
World
less.
class as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bloody hell. So if you look at swimming, right, and two people you can consider really good swimmers, you got a bloke called Michael Phelps, who you may have heard of, and a bloke called Takeuchi. That was pretty good. Who you probably haven't heard of.
Yeah.
Well, I hadn't heard of.
That's right. These are the two most watched YouTube swimming videos of all time. The first one's pretty obvious. Michael Phelps, 28 Olympic medals, 23 of those gold. Kind of makes sense. Everyone kind of knows who Michael Phelps is. But who the hell is this Shinji Takeuchi? Even though as a big swimmer, 9 national gold medals myself as a junior, had never heard of this bloke.
Man, it doesn't count. You can't call it. You can't say, Phelps got 23 gold and I got 8.
I'm putting myself in that same Phelps category.
You're not in the same category. Sorry, I showed to break it to you. But Phelps, right, if you look at the different videos and the different styles, firstly, you got Phelps, who's just an insane man. So he's like grabbing the water near the surface and through superhuman strength, pulling himself through. Shinji, on the other hand, he has his lead arm really deep. So 2 feet below the surface. So he goes for depth rather than horizontal. So very different there. Phelps, he looks like he's strapped to an outboard motor with his huge feet kicking heroically, pushing him like a horsepower insanely. Now, Shinji, it's worth watching this YouTube video because it's very weird because he doesn't kick at all. His feet just sort of just dangle there behind him. So totally different swimming styles as these two different most watched videos in the world.
That's right. People watch Phelps because he looks like Aquaman with all this strength and speed and power. But people watch Shinji because of kind of the opposite, this effortless propulsion. It looks like he's not even trying. And the big key here is Phelps learned to swim when he was 7. Shinji learned to swim when he was 37. So very different styles here. And if you wanted to learn to swim, you might be asking, who should you hire as your coach, Phelps or Shinji? The obvious one, you're probably thinking, I'd hire Phelps. He's won, all these Olympic gold medals. He's, arguably the best swimmer in history. Surely he could teach you a thing or two. But that's probably the wrong answer, because the top of the top of the top, the top 1% of the top 1% of the top 1%, Phelps has got all these different things that you probably don't have. Firstly, he's 6'4". Secondly, his arm span is 6'6". Thirdly, he was a full-time athlete, so he was training all day, every day. So it's probably no wonder that he's a pretty good swimmer.
Yeah, you'd probably still choose Phelps just for the status and just to get a selfie on Insta. But if you're really trying to learn and learn swimming, you are choosing Shinji, because whereas Phelps, it's all about his physical attributes and how hard he worked and how hard he started. Shinji, it's all about he created an effortless swimming technique that anybody can use. Because if you think about Phelps, like he's such an expert, he can't externalize what is internalized, right? So he can't. It's like anything you're learning. I remember, wakeboarding, for example. At the very start, when I was trying to learn from a pro, it just got me nowhere. But when I learned someone who was just, a 4 out of 10, getting up out of the water, yes, you put your hips like this, you move your feet like that. And then, it was only then I could start getting up on the skis. So it's very similar when it comes to learning anything.
That's right. You can imagine Phelps, who swum his whole life, if he was trying to teach an adult who didn't know how to swim, he'd say, jump in the water and then go for it, start swimming freestyle. And they'd be like, what are you talking about? Whereas Shinji, he knows how hard it is, because Shinji, he knows it doesn't come naturally to you. He didn't learn until he's 37. So he can actually break down those vital steps of just how to put one arm in front of the other.
So firstly, it's really important to pick the right coach and the right method. So this is really critical if you want to be learning things quickly and effectively. So, students, you're subordinate to your teachers and your materials, much like novice cooks are subordinate to recipes. Pick the wrong teacher, the wrong material, the wrong textbook, the wrong starting point, the wrong anything. It doesn't matter how hard you work, how much energy and effort you put in. You're not going to learn very well, or you're going to learn not very quickly at all.
That's right. So what we want to be doing is picking a method that is both effective and sustainable. Effective in the sense that it narrows down the material to the most core, most important information that comes up at the highest frequency, and then sustainable in the sense that you can stick to it until you reach that point. If the Phelps sustainability method of eating, I forget what it was, he was eating like 18,000 calories a day or something, swimming 6 hours a day, that's not really sustainable for a beginner. You need to find something that you can stick to until you get good at it.
So Ferriss has created his own model where you can learn anything new that you want to learn, and you can follow this same recipe or the same method, and you can be in the top 5% of the world at anything in the world in 6 to 12 months, even less. 6 to 12 weeks, he's saying now. He's moved the goalpost a little bit, but that's all right. So his method, we're going to flesh out in the next section, and it's called his DIS.
So his DIS, his D triple S, his DS3. I think I don't know. There's some good when people break down a framework. I feel like DSSS is not the best one in terms of easy to remember. But
Where's
it's good.
the I?
It's good. Exactly. You just put it in there because DSSS sounds shit. So it's like DIS. Or DS3.
Should call it anyway.
Anyway, it is good. So his DS3 is deconstruction, selection, sequencing, and stakes.
So the first, deconstruction. You could ask yourself, what are the minimal learning units, the Lego blocks, that you need to start with?
Yeah, imagine if someone was trying to teach you how to play soccer through books, and they say you've got 1 to 2 years that you spend reading books, memorizing shots, different techniques before you get onto the field. It's going to be pretty shit house. You're going to have this awesome image in your brain of how soccer should work. As soon as you try to kick a ball and shank it, there's going to be a massive disconnect there. So the point is that you want to be trying to get the physical skill rather than just the intellectual skill as soon as possible.
Yeah, a bit of research, watching videos or anything like that. They're really good to get you started, but you want to find the magical crutches as early as possible so you're actually doing at the very start. So the best way to do this is to first and foremost answer the following question. How do I break this amorphous skill into small, manageable, bite-sized pieces?
That's it. So say if you want to go and learn to play golf, just learn to play golf, it sounds like a skill. But actually the big macro skill of golf breaks down into all these different micro skills. You got driving off the tee, hitting irons off the fairway, hitting out of the rough, hitting out of the sand, approaching the green, chipping, putting. Then there's the mental side, all these other things. So the big skill of golf is actually like all these different sub skills. So you don't want to go to learn golf. You want to go to learn all these different pieces independently and then put them together.
Golf's a really good one for this because rather than just learning golf, you could actually go to the driving range. And that's a critical one. When you're teeing off on hole 1 and you don't want to embarrass yourself, that specific important skill in golf, you can go to the driving range and figure that out. And you can also go to mini golf and putt around. So it's like, any skill, it's all the same. So if you want to go try surfing, I probably did this unconsciously when I was trying to learn, but I was just a really weak swimmer. Especially on the surfboard. So, it's all good and well to try and learn to surf and catch waves, but if you actually can't paddle to get to the point where you can actually catch a wave, all things are pointless. So, I went out into the bay, Port Phillip Bay, and just started going around on the surfboard and just having moments of like little sprints and all that. And that little skill was really the only thing that enabled the rest of learning the skill in this case.
Yeah, that's good. That's some good deconstruction there. Because most people just think of surfing as the end result, but there's a whole bunch of different sub skills that go into that end result.
So we need to deconstruct the overall skill you're trying to learn, something, the abstract term, bring it into specific bite-sized pieces. That's deconstruction. Next is selection. So there's a little I missing in between. You should have called it DES, I reckon. So the E from DE.
Yeah.
And that would have made more sense. But selection, so the question here, which 20% of the blocks should I focus on for 80% or more of the outcome that I want?
That's right. So you've got all your building blocks, but some are more important than others. You don't necessarily have to learn every single building block to be able to master that big skill. So what Timbo is saying is that it boils down to our 80-20 principle and our MED, our minimum effective dose.
Yeah. So firstly, the 80-20 principle or the Pareto principle says that 80% of the outputs come from 20% of the inputs. So it happens everywhere, right? Like if you've got a whole bunch of different clients, you'll notice that 20% of them give you 80% of your profits, and also 20% of them probably give you 80% of your grief as well.
That's right.
80% of the peas comes from 20% of the plants. 80% of the wealth is held by 20% of the population. This distribution, it occurs everywhere, and it's quite surprising how natural the phenomenon really is.
Yeah, and then if we link back to cooking, that you might find that 20% of the different skills that you can learn unlocks 80% of the potential dishes that you can cook.
Okay, so on the fly, Ashto, I know you've taken some golf lessons. What is the 80-20 there?
On golf?
Yeah.
I would say definitely putting is, if you want to get good at it, definitely putting. And probably...
So if the goal is to minimize the score rather than the look, because the putting's where you could really just hit it further than it is from the hole so many times.
Eventually you're going to get to the green, but there's a big difference between putting, 5 putting versus 2 putting in terms of your score.
So you can do a pretty average drive and not get that much power.
Yeah.
Which is much, and you do that 3 times to get to the green.
You eventually get there,
at the green, you just hanging it all around the job.
I think the other one is probably that like 20 to 30 meter section. It's very easy to try and hit it soft and you end up hitting it 3 meters or just hitting the ground and embarrassing yourself. But it's also very easy to hit it 60 meters and you're back over the other side 30 meters away, still trying to get it back on. So I think they're probably the two key ones. As my mate Tomcat says, you drive for show, but you putt for dough. That's where you get
that's a good one. It's all about the show, though, golf.
I think it is too, yeah.
So that's the 80-20. Secondly is the minimum effective dose, the MED. And this is about the lowest volume, lowest frequency, the fewest changes that's going to get you the desired result that you're after.
Yeah, you want to do it as easy as possible. You don't want to take the hard route. He says that the minimum effective dose of fat loss, which he covered in the 4-Hour Body, is consume 30 grams of protein within 30 minutes of waking up. That's that's one thing to do, like one simple, easy change that's going to help you a lot.
Think of language, for example. All right, so and this can be applied to any language. So the English language, there's a lot of words, 171,000 words that are in current use, but it's always changing and evolving, so it's probably more like 250K. So if you wanted to master English, it would probably take you over 25 years in learning 10,000 words a year. So, if you're not taking this approach, you might just go start learning as many words as you possibly can. But if you're applying the 80-20 principle with the minimum effective dose principles, the learning strategy looks entirely different.
Yeah, he says that you don't need 250,000 words to speak English, because I reckon we go all right in speaking English, and I don't reckon we'd know 20% of the words. So he was saying that the MED for most languages is around 1,200 words, and you can speak extremely fluently and comfortably. And English is kind of the 80-20 on steroids. He says that 0.01% of words make up 33% of printed material. So he says that the top 25 most commonly used words make up a third of all language, which is in English, which is pretty crazy.
Pretty crazy. So to take it a step further, the top 300 words get you 65% coverage. So right now we've gone from 25 years to learning the language to getting 65% of the way there with the top 300 words. So, back to the start, like selling the sizzle of trying to learn something in, 12 weeks, you'd probably apply it to learning any language. Like, what is the minimum effective dose and the 80-20 principle? And you're probably going to land on 200 to 500 words. I remember when I was in Turkey trying to learn the language.
No, it's not Turkey anymore. Did you know that?
No.
It's Turkiya now. They've
Turkiya.
changed the official name.
Yeah, I should know that. But at the start, man, they were trying to make us learn words like horseshoe. No joke. It's like, what? Reading this book is just the dumbest learning method whatsoever.
I remember it, yeah.
You're not going to use the word in English, I've never used the word horseshoe.
If you think back to like primary school or even high school, like when I was learning French, and like I remember we had to like all memorize the name of all different types of stationery, like a pencil, a pen, a rubber, a sharpener, in both the female and the male conjugations or whatever. It's like, that doesn't help you speak French.
How dumb is that? Like, after reading this, how dumb are those curriculums?
Yeah.
Like, how hard would it be for anyone listening right now working on curriculums?
Yeah.
Use this principle and you're going to help kids
actually
so
stick
much.
to it. Yeah.
The top 300, just make them learn 300 words and they're going to be better than, you probably have a year 7 better than a year 12. I think.
Easily.
Very quickly.
So again, if you think of cooking similarly, there's only a couple of skills that can get you a long way. He says that the top 3 most commonly used cooking methods are grilling, sautéing, and braising. So if you learn those 3, that unlocks all of cooking basically.
Yeah, that's so good, man. So we had, what was the first? What was the D? Deconstruction. Selection.
What was the I? Oh, no, that was no I.
So third in this process is sequencing. So we've got the building blocks, we've got down the 80-20, we've got down the minimum effective dose. Now, another thing we don't think about, what is the best order of learning these skills from here?
He tells a story of Josh Waitzkin, a famous chess player, who was kind of taught the opposite way to most people are taught. Because most people, you get the full chessboard. It's like, okay, you've got these, you got 16 pieces, they got 16 pieces, there's 64 squares on the board. We'll start from the start. What do you do first? You learn your opening moves. But that's like a pretty tough way to try to learn everything all at once. Whereas Josh Waitzkin's teacher says, no, we're going to go the other end. We're going to work out the closing moves first. We're going to start as simple as possible. A king versus a king and a pawn. So making it as simple as possible. How do you play from this point?
So, shooting from the hip here, but if you're trying to learn a language, for example, you might, out of those 300 words, learn the ones that are going to get you through the day. So when I think about language, if you learn what is, using the word what is the best word to, because you can ask someone, what is this? What is that? And then you can start learning about the useful things that you can use in everyday language. Or what does this mean? Or how do you say this? I mean, I feel like those things are the top.
Yeah, I like that. Compared to learning how to say horseshoe.
Oh,
yeah.
Insane, mate.
There's an interesting one. He says that most cookbooks stuff this up. Most cookbooks, they go out with the right idea. And they're like, you know what? You've been using and eating mayonnaise for your whole life. This is how simple it is with cooking. If you want to learn to cook, you can learn to cook something that you can just buy from the store, and it's incredibly easy. Like, all you need is you got eggs, olive oil, lemon juice, maybe a bit of salt, and you can replicate what you would normally get out of a jar from the supermarket. But the problem is, whilst on paper it's a bit of a simple task, the actual cookbooks make it this Herculean task. So the recipe for mayonnaise might say just add A and then put in a little bit of B, but whatever you do, don't break the emulsion.
Starting to get me pissed off. What the is an emulsion? How do you break it? How do you avoid breaking it? How do I whisk and add another ingredient at the same time? I don't have enough hands.
Be sure to secure your bowl, ideally a heavy pot lined with a damp dish towel.
Line? You're really starting to piss me off here, Ash. How can you line it inside, outside?
Add olive oil 1 drop at a time.
How do you add 1 drop at a time? Especially while trying to read the next step at the same time.
Add roughly 1 cup per 20 seconds.
Mate, this is starting to get ridiculous.
If it breaks, stop, do Y, then repeat steps L and M, but not too fast. If it's too thin, add a splash of water and mix again.
Mate, this is starting to get too... How much is a splash? How much is too thin? So safe to say, this sort of style, it's quite frustrating, and clearly it's written for the author rather than the reader, because only they know what to do.
And honestly, as a beginner, I think just go and buy the mayonnaise for $3 from the supermarket rather than trying to make it.
Yeah, mate, I agree. And you're not getting the impressing anyone or that sort of stuff.
Yeah, that's
either.
right. I did try to make a garlic aioli, and it was fucking awful. It was just liquid. It wasn't like it was just like
the wrong consistency.
Yeah, the texture of water, not like it didn't have anything to it.
So there's probably no margin of safety.
So skip that one for sure.
Next is, in this learning method of DES, is stakes. So the question here is, how do I set up stakes to create real consequences and guarantee I'm going to follow up the program?
Yeah, so Ferriss tried to create his own stakes. He made like a bit of a scorecard in the back of the book with this game plan where you follow along and try to gamify it a little bit. But if you take that more broadly, often we start out with the right intentions of learning this new skill, but as soon as things get a little bit tricky, we hit a hurdle or progress plateaus, we kind of give up and throw in the towel. So he's saying you kind of need to build in some real-world consequences that trigger in the event that you don't actually follow through on your commitment. So you're kind of committing yourself to doing this by having some kind of stakes, having something on the line.
Yeah, so in the 4-Hour Body came up with this. So he said, hey, send an unflattering picture of yourself in your underwear to a trusted friend and tell them that if you don't follow the slow-carb diet in the next month, just post it online.
That's right.
Mate, I sent a few unflattering photos and nothing much really changed. So then I've just got a few unflattering photos.
Just floating around
out there. Anyway.
Mate, you had to do to someone who had your balls on the line who was going to post it.
Well, they didn't post it, but it was just like just in a group chat saying, hey, watch me.
Yeah.
Watch me in a month's time. Just look at me go. And then didn't really go anywhere.
That's right. If you think about betting pools as well, I remember, Joe Rogan and his mates, they had that fitness challenge for a month. If you remember Seinfeld, the contest, how they had money on the line to see who could hold out the longest. AJ Jacobs, another author, he's a Jewish author, and he had one of these where he said, if I don't commit to this goal and achieve it, then I'm going to donate to the Nazi party. So having those stakes on the line is probably a good incentive to keep you going and make sure you stick to it.
I like it. Something I've started doing is when I book in presentations with architects, I've done it a few times where I put the topic in the title I don't know much about. So then I have to learn the content before I do that presentation in 3 weeks' time.
Mate, that's some real world stakes.
Yeah. And it means like you do learn a lot more when you somehow inject stakes into the mix.
So that's Ferriss's DSSS model, our deconstruction, selection, sequencing, and stakes. And what he's kind of done here is built all of this into a cookbook. And so what he's done is now that we've kind of learned the meta of how to learn, now he's applying it to this one specific skill of cooking. And of course, you can apply that to anything.
So all those principles we've already been talking about is injected into here. So you're really going to have the simplest and easiest way of actually learning how to become a world-class cook in pretty much no time. So in the book, he's got 14 new meals. What else? New?
Yeah.
New. It's a pretty interesting word. Yeah. 14 new meals that take between 5 to 20 minutes of prep time, 4 hours total of cooking, right? So pretty easy stuff.
Yeah, and that's where he shoehorned in his 4-hour chef, following on from the 4-hour work week and the 4-hour body, saying 14 meals, 5 to 20 minutes each, 4 hours of cooking to become a chef type of thing.
So, yeah, that's 4 hours of cooking across 14 meals in total, right?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
That's no time, man. So you've done all 14?
I did about 11, I reckon. There was a few weird ones.
So he didn't get
chicken liver pate and an eel, one that I couldn't actually find the eel for.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So you did a minimum effective dose on his
On the
minimum effective
that's
dose.
right.
That's probably a good strategy. So,
That's right.
there's 14 lessons, not much time. Furthermore, he's got all the gear, so he's minimized that. So pots, pans, utensils is severely restricted. Because that was my issue when it came to Marley spoon and stuff. You'd end up sometime with too many dishes lying around, and the prep time, the cook time was just too much mucking around. I went back to the old microwave.
All those failure points, and really kind of the end goal here. It's a bit of a Trojan horse, I guess. So obviously, you learn these specific skills and these specific meals, but he's saying the end goal here is to obviously become a cook. So become not the 60 seconds in the microwave, but someone who enjoys cooking, someone who can host a dinner party, bring friends or strangers together, cook them a meal, actually cook good, healthy, easy, tasty meals for yourself and for your family regularly. And if you want to, go to some of those bigger, fancier, more elaborate meals as well.
I like it. Maybe a good challenge for the listeners right now, if they're serious about this, maybe book in a dinner party for, maybe a month from now. Tell them what you're going to be cooking, and maybe that doubles everything, because maybe you got to read this book beforehand and you got to figure out how to cook. So if you really want to challenge yourself, it's probably a good stakes. And I like how some people take us up on their challenges.
Yeah.
We haven't really put many out there. We get the occasional email coming through.
Yeah, even the 4 Hour Body challenge, we're still getting you put out the challenge, we're still getting the occasional person taking us up on the challenge and sending us those before photos as well.
So yeah, go out and do that and send us a photo of the party or what you're going to do, and maybe invite us.
Yeah, exactly. There's a few new sort of key ideas that he brings here to what you would normally consider cooking, to the sort of Tim Ferriss broken down method. So one is that it kind of mirrors professional chefs. So each of the recipes he does is broken up into prep and pickup. So normally before this, I was very much like cooking is like, okay, once you start cooking for the night, you start and then you keep going until it's done. Whereas now he's saying there's this prep stuff, which is all the things you can do in advance, and then pick up is when it's actually nearly time to eat, where you start putting things together. So I guess for me, it was very much, I was very much like a meat and 3 veg guys. Maybe it was a steak with a mashed potato, a steamed carrot, and a sauteed asparagus. The old approach would be at like 5 p.m. after work, coming time to dinner, start peeling the potatoes, start chopping the carrots, start washing the asparagus, start seasoning the steak, and you got all these different knives, all these different chopping boards, pots, pans, mess everywhere. Eventually you get to the end, 2 hours later, you eat your food, and then another 30 minutes of cleaning up. But what he's saying is what you could actually do now is prep beforehand. There's a whole bunch of things that you can do before you actually need to start to cook. So maybe during your lunch break, you can peel the potatoes, you can wash and peel the carrots, you can chop them up, you can chop the ends off the asparagus, give them a wash, and kind of everything's sort of ready. All the messy stuff's done, and all you need to do at the very end is just put the steak on to fry and put the veggies onto steam, and it's a quick way to sort of pick up once everything's already been prepped and cleaned.
I like it. And you could probably do all your prep in one hit, can you? Because you're only cleaning all your dishes in one go there.
Exactly.
So there's a bit of my own injection there, Tim, that you missed. Secondly, so that was all about prep and pickup. There's a new idea here as well. For each new meal, you need to think about your mise, M-E-E-Z, your mise en place, which is getting everything in one place.
Yeah, it's pretty frustrating if you start just cooking a recipe and then you slice a chicken breast in half and then realize that the next step you got to season it with salt, pepper, and tarragon, but now you got chicken juice on your hands and you got a chicken breast sitting on the bench that you probably shouldn't be leaving out of the fridge for too long, and you're scrambling through the cupboard to try to find these ingredients. It's a real mess. So instead, you want to get your mise. You want to get everything out and on the bench and prepared in its right spot before you start doing anything. So you read the full recipe first. You grab out all the ingredients from the pantry and the fridge that you need, so you can kind of do them. And this is like a bit of a general thing as well. If you think about it, doing your work, if you've got everything ready on the desk, or you've got all the right tabs open and you can get to it, as opposed to starting a report and then you're like, oh shit, I forgot, I have to go into analytics and grab this screenshot and find these stats, and you become much more efficient if you get your mise ready in the first place. Yeah,
there's a lot of just stuffing around sometimes, looking for things. I've personally got a lot of issues with that, looking at the keys before you... looking for the wallet, and you lose 20 minutes here and there.
That's right.
So I might just do 3 surface pinger meals, and as we said, you're probably better off buying buying the book and doing the challenge because, it's really no time to actually get to the point where you're bloody good. And I didn't have your before and after cooking, Ashto. I don't think do you ever cook for me before? I think you did eggs and bacon once.
That's
which
probably
is just basic as it did.
I reckon.
But then I was super impressed by your cooking both times, especially the first one. Was that one of these meals?
Nah, that was just that was post. I reckon there's probably post this. Taking the skills and going to the next level beyond the Ferriss.
Yeah,
it was good.
Absolutely blown away.
What do we have? We had a bit of a Texan pulled pork, a bit of a mac and cheese. Yeah, it was a.
Not good for losing weight, that's for sure. So the first one we got here is Osso, in parentheses, Bucco.
Yeah, that's right.
And then in brackets, braising.
So this Osso Bucco, it kind of appears on high-end restaurants all around the world. It's a bit of a fancy dish, like a bit of a stew, something that even if you have only screwed up 2-minute noodles in the past, you can still probably get to a decent Osso Bucco and still be matching it with sort of the top restaurants in the world.
So despite, cooking a tasty meal, you're actually going to be learning a skill in this whole process as well. So here we're learning braising, which is going to be a skill you're going to take on forever. This is super easy and it's low risk and / high margin for error method of cooking. And when we're doing this, there's not a hell of a lot of equipment either. You just need a knife, you need a cutting board, you need a Dutch oven.
Hey, you know what a Dutch oven is?
I thought it was just a fart in a blanket.
You fart in the blanket and trap it and send someone under there. And
It's not.
No, it's actually, mate, you've got a Dutch oven.
No, what?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
It's the pot with the lid on top. You made baked beans in there for us. That's a Dutch oven.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's really all you need. And this is a pretty simple recipe. Not many ingredients. You can't really fuck it up. But all you do basically is you got your carrots. He says you just break them in half, put them on the bottom of the pan. You chop up this lamb shank, put it on top. Get a can of tomatoes, pour it on top. Add in some garlic, add in some olive oil, add in some salt and pepper. Pour some wine over the top, and then put it in the oven for 2 hours.
Is that it?
That's it.
Is that all you do?
That's all you do.
And is it good?
It comes out pretty good. Yeah. And because the braising method of cooking is like roasting something inside liquid, it doesn't matter, he says, if it's 2 hours, if it's an hour 45, it doesn't matter. If it's 2.5 hours, it doesn't matter. It's still going to turn out pretty good.
Nice. And I think is what probably got the inspiration for your braised beef brisket that came later, right?
That's right, mate. There was a taking the prep and the pickup method. When I had mum and dad over for dinner one time, did the braised beef brisket, which was like an 8-hour thing. So I just got up in the morning, 9 a.m., prepped everything, put the lid on, chucked in the oven, and then at the very end, once I came over, it was just sort of 10 to 12 minutes at the end, sort of slicing everything up.
The best thing about that one, it's really a piece of piss for you, isn't it? But for the guests, you can say, hey, I started cooking at 10 a.m.
Yeah. That's right.
And especially for your parents to get some brownie points, because it does feel like you put all this effort in, you've dedicated a whole day to cooking. Yeah. Which is not the case.
Admittedly, starting at 10 a.m. was 15 minutes, then chuck it in the oven. But yeah, it does sound good. I was cooking for 8 hours.
Yeah. So it's all about the story with cooking as well, I think.
Oh, big time.
Adds to it.
Big time.
There's another side here, Ashto. So we got curry coconut cauliflower mash. So tell us about this one.
Mate, this is a great. I'm not really a fan of mashed white potato. I don't know the texture. The
it's not healthy.
Nutritional component is horrendous.
It's like you might as well have chips.
Yeah, exactly.
Chips are a tasty. Yeah.
This is that, but actually good for you and tastes good as well. Again, we're using our Dutch oven, and this is another super simple one. It's definitely one of my go-to sides now. All you need to do, so you got your cauliflower. You wrap it in a towel and fucking bang the shit out of it to break it up. Obviously, beforehand I used to cut it up, but you can just bang it. This is the Tim Ferriss quick method. 30 seconds of banging it, and you get all the florets.
Or just
grab it, wrap it up, and just
start slamming it around.
It's tough to convey over a podcast, but you know what I meant, Jonesy.
Yeah, I like it.
You chuck that in the Dutch oven. Grab a can of coconut cream, chuck that on top. Grab a handful of cashews, chuck them in. Put the lid on, cook it for like 25, 30 minutes. Again, it doesn't really matter if you go over for a bit. If you're cooking it on low, you're not going to burn it. And then at the very end, a little sprinkle of curry powder, a little sprinkle of cinnamon, a little sprinkle of salt, and mash it all up.
Jeez, mate, you're really selling me now on how easy this is. I'm actually going to get on it, I think, next year. Now, this next one is...
Year. Hey, that's a long way away.
Yeah, that's really kicking the can out. You really got faith that I'm going to do it when you say, no, I'll do it.
Oh, mate, we just did How to Change, and she was talking about, finding fresh start opportunities. You've gone for Jan 1st, mate. There's another first coming up very soon, or you can start Monday if you want.
Well, she had 200 fresh start opportunities you could break
right.
out your year into. I've gone for the single. So I'm not going to do it, let's just face it. The third one, though, I might do. This is really good. So you got Eggs of the World. Now, eggs are obviously the perfect slow-carb breakfast, if you read that. They're really healthy, and there's a lot of different ways you can add different types of metaphorical salt and pepper to make it
That's right.
a little bit
or
different.
literal salt and pepper.
Or literal. So you can still have your scrambled eggs for breakfast, but still have a little bit of that variety, so you're not getting bored of what you're eating.
Yeah, definitely. I think I did. I think I said 15 here. I've probably done 25 of these different ones. He's got 67 different country flavor combinations in the book, and basically all it is you you put some oil, you crack some eggs into the pan, mix them up, and then you throw in these different flavors. For example, there was like a West African one, which is tomato, peanut, and chili. There was a Spanish one, which was pepper, onion, and almond. There was a Nepal, which was lime, ginger, and chili. There was Burma, which was onion, ginger, garlic, and turmeric. There was Indonesia, which was soy sauce, brown sugar, and peanut. And all these different ones where you still having eggs, and it's basically the same time plus 10 seconds of adding sprinkles of whatever in, but you're getting a different egg every day.
Yeah, and the story again, man, how good's that? I'm making you northeast African eggs.
Yeah, that's right. How much better does that sound than scrambled eggs?
Yeah, scrambled eggs. So, mate, this was all applied to cooking, obviously. It can be applied to anything. Did you ever watch the Tim Ferriss experiment?
I ended up watching a couple of episodes.
Well, he applied these principles to a lot of different things, like playing the drums.
I watched that episode.
Yeah, it was a cool episode, right? Because his stakes he raised, he was actually going to be playing to a crowd of 10,000, 20,000 or something.
I forget which band it was, but it was a pretty popular band, and he was playing drums for them for
one song.
Yeah.
And he had to do a very basic drum beat.
Yeah.
And it was quite a good show, this one.
Yeah.
I think it was a big flop from his point of view, right? I remember him talking about it being a big flop.
Yeah.
Did it for surfing, did it for parkour.
I remember he did it for Japanese horseback archery as well, I think, an episode maybe.
He's an odd unit, isn't he? I like how his brain works. He's an odd unit, though. And obviously a language, man. So it's cool. You could apply it, just the popular things you want to learn, guitar. Everyone wants to learn an instrument, languages. So before you just dive right in and get into the deep end, I think these principles we've learnt in this book, which can also be applied for booking, are really phenomenal to help your learning journey there.
Our book has just turned 1 year old. The Shit They Never Taught You, we published last year, 12 months on. If you haven't grabbed a copy yet, what are you doing? It's available in physical book, ebook, audiobook, theshittheynevertaughtyou.com.
So here's what some of the people and the readers have been saying. So firstly, here we got Tim. I've listened to the podcast for years, and it was great to have a refresher and succinct summary of all the books we should read in full. The concept of going straight to the area that you need really appeals to me. Worth buying for sure.
Here's another one from Sam B. Love their podcast and love this book. The bonus chapters for the audiobook are great as well. So it was 115 books in one in the physical book. The audiobook for you bonus, 147 or 148 books in one.
Yeah, so if you're just pretty new to this, to listening to the podcast, the book is really the podcast on steroids. All the best stuff that we've covered put into the written format. Or if you prefer to listen to us, you can obviously go to the audiobook. So head to whatyou'lllearn.com. You'll see us on the front page there, or you can go to theshittheynevertaughtyou.com.